Today, some tips and tricks for using pan and tilt heads and pan and tilt fluid heads that I think even current users could learn from, plus why I still prefer these heads to ball heads and gimbals. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. I'm gonna talk a little bit about pan and tilt heads and fluid heads and share some tips and some tricks for using them that I've noticed people maybe not quite understanding when I've been out in the field running workshops with people using these heads. We'll talk about how best to use and optimize the use of these pan and tilt heads. And I think along the way, you'll see why I prefer carrying one of these solutions, like my custom tripod builds, to carrying a ball head and or a gimbal head, because I believe that these do just as good a job of both of those heads and save you time and weight, and actually once you start using them, you have a really hard time going back to the others. So we'll run through a little bit how I use both of these, and I'll start with my favorite, the fluid head, which, you know, if you're gonna set it up, I've got all kinds of links to customize your own set of tripod legs over on my website, hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. You can click this link right here. You can also, in that whole link, when you're on my website, just click on gear, and I sell lots of these parts as well as these complete custom build tripods. This is my tall, light, 7-pound fluid head system. And you know, the beauty of a pan and tilt head, whether it's a fluid head or a straight up pan and tilt head like my favorite Acrotech panorama head, is that you get level beneath, and whatever you do, you stay level, which is really useful in action photography and landscape photography. With my fluid head system, you've got an internal level right in the center of the fluid head. You can tip the fluid head's tilt forward, lock it. There's just really two main motion controls on the fluid head, which is the pan lock and the tilt lock. And there's a nice bubble level inside there that's easy to see. And then you just take this little winged thing. The nice thing with this particular leveling base, the Acrotech 75S, LB75S leveling base, is that as you're looking at the level, you can use your pinky finger with both hands on the head, get it snug, and then tighten it. And now you're locked level. Whatever you do, this head will only pan level and stay, and you can tilt and stay level. And the benefit of that is that you can set up on the tripod and stay level. Now, some people don't like to use a nodal rail. I prefer using a nodal rail, particularly this Acrotech adjustable nodal rail with the lever clamp. I leave the clamp atop my fluid head oriented in the tilt direction, so that if I have a long lens with a foot, I can tilt it. With my particular setup with the Acrotech, or with the Kirk bridge assembly, the Kirk bridge assembly replaces the original Manfrotto bridge assembly, which is more video specific, and allows you to mount this nice Kirk clamp, Arca-Swiss clamp. And there are 3 positions in here. The further forwardmost has a little symbol that shows it is the center point underneath which this head pans. So this is great for those who are super panorama junkies. You mount it all the way forward, all the way forward. Now remember, your pan tension adjustment on the head is in the rear. So you mount it as far away from that as possible, and I mount it oriented straight fore and aft. That way, when I use a camera with a long lens, for example, there we go, we got it nice and tight. For example, my Z9 with the 400 TC, I can loosen the collar, rotate the foot underneath the camera, drop it in here, it's oriented the correct way, and then I just need to open that clamp, make sure that it's in there snug, find the balance point, moving fore and aft with the foot on here, where it's nicely balanced as you would on a gimbal. I can let go, it's unlocked. If I tilt, the fluid will slow down any kind of catastrophic crash, but I can always just lock with that easy tilt lock knob. And now it's tilting, and if I loosen this up, it's panning. I can track just like a gimbal. I can rotate around, I can follow action, I can move. If I want to walk away from it, it's as simple as just a quick twist that, boom, done, right? I don't even have any weight in this. The substantialness of this Series 3 70-inch tall tripod is plenty for this lens combo. When you read the weight limitations on this head, if you look at the Manfrotto 500AH that I spec on my tall light fluid head system, it looks light for this rig. But that's when they're thinking about videographers doing smooth pan and tilt motions against the fluid. This camera and lens combination is heavy enough, it overwhelms the fluid and lets you move very, very quickly. There's very little fluid resistance. That's not what a videographer wants. A videographer wants to move against that fluid with very smooth pan and tilt operations to get smooth video motions. As far as locking down a camera, it's absolutely efficient. All right? When I want to use a lens that's not got a foot, a non-long lens, you know, in the situation where you'd have to leave your gimbal, take it apart, or have your separate tripod with your ball head, it's as simple as either, I see some people set up and just, they loosen up the clamp, rotate it, and drop their camera in on top, and that's fine in many cases, but if you have a long, heavy lens, it puts you out there where it wants to go against the fluid and tip, all right? What I prefer to do is never have to do that at all. I just leave the clamp in that position, put its tool back in its little keeper, and drop my nodal rail in there. Then that puts the adjustable sliding clamp on the Acrotech nodal rail in the perfect position to lock a small camera like my Q3 or my Z9 with a shorter length lens, the 14-24. And I can position it the way I would these days for panoramas, just so simply put the lens right over the center point of the clamp to just minimize parallax when you're photographing panoramas. You can also just get balanced where the camera and lens are balanced, and that fluid is going to just kind of keep you from ever being able to flop. And when you want to make a micro adjustment down, it's as simple as that. To the left, simple as that. You stay level no matter what you're doing. You want to flip to a horizontal composition, just use your L bracket, right? The nice thing with this adjustable nodal rail is that if I could see the front of the rail in my wide angle lens view, it's as simple as sliding the clamp forward on the panorama rail, and it can just be adjusted to keep the nose of that out of your frame. This isn't a problem right now with me with my Q3. It's not quite that wide, but if I had a wider lens that was short like this, I could just slide the clamp forward to another position on the nodal rail, and then slide the whole nodal rail back a little bit to get balance. It's that easy. It's super adjustable. What I have seen people do that is not correct, and I saw it as recently as our Oregon Coast workshop last week, was a participant who had switched from a long lens to a short lens and just put the camera on sideways. Now all of a sudden your tilt is the rainbow adjustment. You don't want that. There's a reason it's called tilt. If you're not going to use the panorama, the nodal rail, which I always use, you're going to want to turn that clamp so that tilt is tilt. You're tilting the view up and down. Pan is left and right. Again, whatever you do, you stay level. So this really works for landscape, still life, portraiture, long lens work like action, wildlife, you name it. The lighter and you know, arguably easier to travel with system is my ultralight setup, which utilizes Acrotech's pan and tilt head, the panorama head. And the reason, you know, why we would call this a panorama head, same thing with the fluid head. You level this from below. Now, I like using these 284 CEX legs that I put on my custom builds. Again, I tip the head forward so there's a nice big bubble level that's easy to see in here. And there's an adjustment, a built-in leveling adapter. There's a knob on the side of the spider of this nice little lightweight tripod. This whole system's about 4 pounds. This is what I have in Europe with me while you're watching this video. I get the bubble centered in the center of the head, lock it down. Now everything I do, again, there's a pan lock knob to pan left and right. There's a tilt lock knob to tilt up and down. Just like the Kirk bridge assembly for the Manfrotto fluid head, Acrotech has a rotating clamp up here. You can simply take an Allen wrench like this one that's embedded in my Kirk bridge assembly and loosen this guy. We just go like that, and you can spin this, and it lifts up, and we'll twist. Now it's oriented that I could drop my camera in and be panning. Again, I never do that with this head. You know, this way, I mean, I can tilt, but it puts me a bit off balance and at a disadvantage. I like to keep the clamp oriented the same way that I do on my fluid head system. I like to keep it oriented so that the tilt is in line with the clamp. And then it's as simple as put the Allen wrench in, tighten that down so it can't come loose. Keep that guy stowed in the clamp there. It's as simple as dropping the nodal rail and you open these locking levers. This is another really nice thing with Kirk's clamps. They're lightweight, they have a beautiful level built in, and they lock. You have to push a button like a lock blade knife to reopen them. Now, I can drop my smaller camera rig in there, lock it, everything stays level. I can position myself so that the center of the lens is over the center of rotation. I can tilt for a multi-row. If I want to do a panorama, it's as simple as putting that lens so it's over the center of rotation. Tilt for the lower row, snap, 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 snap with overlap. Tilt for the middle row, snap, 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 snap with overlap. Tilt for the upper row. Everything is panning level, even though I'm tilted. So it winds up working beautifully. And then when I want to stick a longer lens on, I can pull the whole nodal rail off. And you know, here we go. Now this tripod system, like I said, is only about 4 pounds. So I have a big sandbag hanging off my rock bag on this. I have the Leofoto, or the Desmond rock bag on here. I'm going to come into this guy, get it somewhat leveled up. It's going to take just a little adjustment to get in there. Lock that guy down. Make sure that the lock is activated. I'm in a pretty sweet spot level-wise. It's not going to hold the way that the fluid would. It would drop really fast. There's not that fluid to protect you. It isn't like a gimbal where it's going to stay as balanced, but you've got a nice big knob that locks off the tilt, and it will lock off the tilt at any angle. With a little weight in the stone bag, this is an absolutely usable option. As long as you keep your hand on here, you keep your pan loose, you keep your tilt loose, and you can track action just like you had a gimbal with this little 4-pound system that's also great for landscape shooting, right? Tilt, pan, everything's level because you've leveled the head from beneath. You want to take a break for a second, lock it off, walk away, do something else. Even though I've got a Z9 with a 400 TC on here. Take the camera off is as simple as popping that lock right there. Boom. Want to go back to using your smaller lens. You pull the thing apart, drop your nodal rail in, get your tilt set, still level, boom. All right, back to shooting landscapes. It's that simple. And I think that by running through some of these tips, it probably shows you why I prefer this to a ball head. True, if you have a ball head on a leveling adapter, you can level your level adapter, then level the clamp at the top of the ball head, and then you can pan level. But the minute that you tilt, you're no longer guaranteed that you're panning level. It could be off slightly to one side or the other. The minute you loosen to make a slight up or down adjustment, you lose your level. You've got to recheck your level, make sure you stay level. With this system, you're just locked in level. And when you want to switch to a long lens with a ball head, good luck with that. If you want to do nice, smooth video motions, the fluid head is absolutely your tool. You know, if you have any interest in video and you want to have Hollywood-style, smooth panning motions, that fluid in the fluid head, you just go against it and it resists and slowly moves. I know some people that set up with it, you know, initially take this out of the box and they feel that fluid motion. They say, well, that's going to really slow me down. But the minute that you switch to a heavier setup, you know, and it doesn't have to, with my 100 to 400 or my 70 to 200, the weight of the system really overcomes the fluid and you're able to move as fast as you want. And actually, the feeling of that fluid is smooth and damped, and it actually gives you a nicer feel. So I think the biggest tip for me, for everyone to think about is, When you're using the fluid head, the way that I set them up with the Kirk bridge assembly, the aftermarket bridge assembly that converts you to Arca Swiss, is you want to keep that clamp oriented in the same orientation as the tilt. Use the foot of your long lenses, use the nodal rail that comes with this system if you buy it from me, to be able to keep balanced nice fore and aft over this, and to be able to do panoramas very, very easily. The other big tip is make sure that you get level from beneath, and that with this Kirk bridge assembly, that furthest forward position, further away from your pan lock knob, is the one where it centers that clamp over the axis of rotation. That's great for the panoramic photographer. And just know that, you know, this has plenty of holding capacity, as does this head for the biggest lens you're likely to use. So I can't ever see going back to ball heads and gimbals, certainly not carrying both of them around on big trips. When I'm in Europe right now while you're watching this, and the only head I have with me is this guy. I've got my 100 to 400 millimeter lens in case there's some wildlife or some action. This head will work fine for tracking that action. Plus it's nice and light to backpack up into the Alps and the mountains of the Isle of Skye. So, all right, those are my tips and tricks. If you're curious about any of these parts or about buying the tripods themselves from me, we do complete builds of this ultralight pan and tilt Acrotech panorama head-based system with the built-in leveling adapter. We do complete builds of the Leo Photo, big, tall. These legs get huge. You know, if I'm in a situation where, say, I'm up on a rock and I can get two legs on the rock with me, but one of them needs to go way out, well, I can extend this all the way like that, which lets me throw that leg way down into the water in a tide pool, or on a big hillside, I can extend it down the hillside and continue to work at eye level. And then it's as simple, as I said, of just throwing on my eyeglasses, my readers, looking down at that bubble level, and even though the tripod's not level, boom, now the head is, and everything I do with it will stay level no matter what. Perfect for panoramas, perfect for landscapes, perfect for action. This is the one system that does it all for me. All right, so you got any questions, any comments, hit me up. I'm easy to get a hold of either in the YouTube comments or over on my website. I want to thank everybody for liking, sharing, and subscribing. We'll be back from Europe soon with stories to tell, so look out for that. I'm sure we'll have an office hours end of October, early November. Those are on Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific. It's a big free photography get-together. You can sign up hudsonhenry.com/office hours and leave us a question. This next one is going to be just a big free-for-all. We have a lot of questions stacked up, but we're looking for more good questions. We'll just have a big group discussion, probably show some images from Europe. So sign up for that. You can join us on Zoom or YouTube Live, and we'll see you then. So thanks, everybody. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying creative. We'll see you next week.